Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Celine Zavala. In 1852, the first intercollegiate sporting event took place in New Hampshire between the Yale and Harvard rowing teams. The first intercollegiate baseball game took place in 1859 between Amherst and Williams College. Popularity of collegiate sports increased from that point on. Now in 2016, the National Collegiate Athletic Association regulates more than 1,000 institutions, conferences, organizations, and individuals. It's no surprise that college athletes dedicate an enormous amount of their time to their sport. A recent survey conducted by the NCAA shows that student athletes practice about 40 hours a week. That is basically the same amount of hours as a full-time employee, but that's on top of their schoolwork and social life. Last year, the Northwestern University football team petitioned to unionize because they said they felt like full-time workers. The players said in a dangerous sport like football, the school should cover their injuries that may last longer than their collegiate playing careers. The National Labor Relations Board dismissed the team's petition in order to preserve the NCAA's core principle that college athletes are primarily students. The NCAA alone generates about $1 billion per year from selling television rights and merchandising. None of the money from the NCAA goes to the college athletes specifically, but they do get some perks. Sports gear, food, and travel are some of the expenses paid for athletes. 96% of the NCAA revenue goes towards paying for athletic programs, coaches, staff, stadiums, and equipment. We spoke to some students to see if they think the money generated by teams should be split equally among student athletes.
Every athlete from that sport should get paid a percentage of what their sport brings into the school. Because, I mean, nothing against the other sports that don't bring in as much money. They're still providing, an experience and an education to these kids. But obviously a football program is going to bring in millions, and a water polo program is going to bring in, a couple $1,000.
I mean, it also has to depend on, the viewings and whatnot. I think that it might be based off of that. But in a perfect world, then I would say yes.
Let's say how much people show up to their sport or how much support they get. Because let's say if they have a game and no one goes, I think they should still get paid, but maybe not as much.
College players should be getting paid an equal amount to as far as basketball and football.
They should get paid. I think they should have it where college athletes should have a pool of money where all the athletes make money for the school, but it should be divided up equally for everybody. Because sometimes, they've had problems with gender equality where women don't get paid as much as men do. So I think it's the best thing and the most fair thing to do.
In 2014, NCAA and Electronic Arts were in the middle of a major lawsuit started by college athletes who were demanding to earn compensation for EA Sports video games using the college athletes' likenesses. The players won that suit and ended up getting compensated for the way they were used in the games. This issue is becoming more and more prevalent in the two big sports, basketball and football, where most of the money is generated. Basketball players are now forced to play at least 1 year in college before being eligible for the NBA draft, the so-called one-and-done rule. And some players feel they are losing money by having to play in college. This year's #1 pick in the NBA draft, Ben Simmons, says everybody's making money except the athletes. He says the one-year rule is to give athletes the benefit of an education, but if athletes are only there for 1 year, how much education can they really get? As of now, college athletes can only receive scholarships or small stipends for school, and the issue continues to be controversial. On Point's Keisha Phillips has more.
Thank you, Celine. Today I'm joined by CSUN baseball player and starting pitcher Connor O'Neill, and kinesiology professor and an expert in sports psychology, Dr. Jacob Jensen. Thank you for being here. Should college athletes be paid?
Well, my take on it as an athlete might not be too popular with other athletes. I don't think we should have an actual income for playing. However, I don't think we should have to pay to go to school either. So if we don't receive a scholarship, we have to, of course, pay to go to school here. I think it should all be comped because it is essentially a full-time job.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think we should have an actual income.
And how about you, Dr. Jensen?
Yeah, I would agree with Connor. I don't think that student athletes should be paid. I think between those that are on scholarship are getting a free education. They have access to strength and conditioning coaches, sports psychologists, facilities, good coaching. I feel like all of that adds up to thousands and thousands of dollars, and I don't see that they need to be, get paid more than that.
You were drafted and you turned it down. How did you make that decision?
Essentially, it came down to would I want to forego graduating in order to get a jump start on a professional career. And I kind of weighed the pros and cons, and I would have rather left CSUN with a degree and started playing professionally maybe a year later than going to play professionally for however long and having to come back and get that degree.
And so you turned it down and you ended up at CSUN. How'd you end up here?
Well, I was already here. I got drafted after my junior year, so I've been here since my sophomore year.
Okay.
So yes, I turned it down and came back for my senior year.
So yeah, your senior year now. If you were getting paid, do you think it would be different?
Yeah, I would think so. I think your incentive to work harder and get better would probably go down if you're already getting paid.
Okay.
There's no incentive to really go professional and get paid if you're already, getting that. So your work ethic could take a shot from that.
So we actually talked to some CSUN students to get their opinion on whether or not a college athlete should be paid. Maybe you can respond to their reactions afterwards.
Okay, no problem.
Not necessarily. I think it all has to do with just like their intrinsic motivation, which is like just kind of how they like view it. Like if they're really driven and motivated to do the sport as like a profession, then I think that they will feel motivated regardless if they're paid or not.
A lot of athletes coming up, like that's basically their motivation is to make it to the rank where they can get paid. So I don't think it will affect them at all.
For a lot of college athletes, their sport is a way for them to get a degree they wouldn't have had access to otherwise.
No, I feel like getting paid kind of drives the passion more because not only are they doing what they love, but they're getting paid to do what they love.
Doctor, your response to their opinions would be?
It sounds like there's kind of a mix, that some feel like it would drive their motivation to get paid. Others feel like it should be more of that intrinsic motivation, competing in your sport for self-improvement and getting better, being driven that way. And so I think probably if you poll most students, you're going to get a mixed response there. I just want to go back, though. I really think Connor's a great example of what student athletes should be. Everyone's different, but the fact that he did turn down, he got drafted and turned that down so that he could get the college degree and have that education. I really respect that, and I think that's a great role model for a lot of student athletes.
Do you think money could affect the player's performance, or?
I think it could add to the stress and anxiety. I already, I consult with collegiate athletes. I do mental training with them, and I think if it becomes professionalized, it's just going to add more and more stress. And I also see issues as, why is that player getting paid and not maybe another player? Already we have problems with some are on scholarships, some are only on partial, some don't have scholarships. I think if we add the money and making it you're paid for it, I just see that raising even more drama in the athletic department. Pressure and miscommunication and problems that I think will just make the situation worse, not better.
Connor, with the money, do you think it would affect your performance at all?
Personally, I don't think it would affect me. I know there's other athletes. You kind of see it all the time in professional sports where, let's say their contract year is up, they're up to get a new contract, a big contract, so they play very well because they want that extra money.
Right.
Then they finally get that big contract, and then next year, their performance goes down.
Oh, wow.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Okay. Let's say if players did end up getting paid, should it be equal with all sports? This question is for both of you. Yeah, you can start if you want.
I don't think it should be equal. in that the LSU football team is obviously going to bring in millions and millions of dollars, but is their, women's water polo team going to bring in, like, is it fair? Whether you could get past that with the NCAA, I don't know. But financially, and if, we're talking about being fair, I don't think it is.
Okay. And you, Doctor?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think there's only very, very few teams that bring in any kind of revenue in the NCAA, a few football teams and a few basketball teams. So I think, if they're bringing in a lot of revenue, those are the ones that are making the argument that they should be paid. But from my perspective, my sport was tennis, baseball. We're not bringing in the revenue, but we're still putting in the 40 plus hours a week, working just as hard as the football, basketball. And I think it's, really hard for athletes in those sports to then see the football and basketball players getting paid, and we're not getting paid, though we're putting in the same hours, same commitment to the university. So it gets very tricky there.
That actually was my next question. Like, I know that, players practice 20, 40 hours a week, like working a full-time job. For you, how do you feel about not having any financial benefit for the time you're putting in?
Yeah, if you look at it that way, it could be frustrating because we are, practicing, working out 40 hours a week on top of 4 or 5 classes, study hall, weights on your own if you choose to do so. But I look at it as, we get all this free equipment, free facilities when we go on the road, free plane tickets, free food. So all that stuff does add up, so you have some perks.
That's awesome. Is it stressful for a college athlete? Like, you were a tennis player, so I'm sure you know the stresses of the game.
It's very stressful. I mean, again, you're essentially working a full-time job and trying to be a student at the same time, getting a degree. And unfortunately, a lot of professors also don't work with student athletes very well in terms of making up work and assignments. Obviously with my background as an athlete before and a coach, I'm very sensitive to that and really try to work with student athletes. But I know I faced a lot of professors when I was an athlete that were not understanding of that. And, I don't know, Connor, how much school you miss during season, but, often the athletes are missing quite a few classes and they have no control over that. So it's not easy to keep up, do well in school, and then also, between practice, travel, season can be very, very tough. I have a lot of empathy for students.
Yeah, so for you, I mean, is it like really stressful?
Yeah, more so in season because we play, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you can't take classes during certain hours on Tuesdays, can't take classes on Fridays.
Wow.
And you kind of got to work your class schedule around your baseball schedule, and homework and everything else goes into that as well. It gets pretty stressful.
So since college athletes are not getting paid, do they receive a full scholarship, or should they receive a full scholarship? 'Cause I know you mentioned the benefits that you get.
Right. I do think we should receive a full scholarship because we don't have time, if we're not, receiving a full scholarship, we don't have time to go make that money and pay for whatever we're not getting compensated for. But unfortunately, most of us are not on full scholarships. Many of us are not on any scholarship at all. So that's where financial aid and so on comes in.
So that stuff kicks in?
Yeah.
Okay. And then for you, so you didn't receive any type of scholarship for your tennis playing at the time when you were a student?
No, I did. I had a scholarship.
Okay.
It was it covered all of tuition. I did not get, tennis has 4.5 scholarships for men's tennis. So that's split usually among 8 to 10 players. Okay. So you're getting partial. So I do think there needs to be more scholarship for all, especially the minor sports outside of football and basketball, so that these athletes that are putting 40 hours again, full-time job, are getting at least some compensation in the sense of getting school tuition, books, that type of thing covered.
Right. Last year, Northwestern's football team failed to unionize.
Northwestern's football team, I believe, gets a fair amount of fans and revenue, so they do have a better case to make for making money than I would myself.
Right.
So
Okay.
best of luck to them.
And you, Doctor?
I do feel like there needs to be some type of union system to protect student athletes because while I do not think they should be paid, I do think that student athletes get taken advantage of. I think some of the NCAA rules are archaic and athletes do get abused in terms of their time and not getting treated fairly, and sometimes coaches won't release them from if they want to transfer.
Right.
So I do think that there needs to be some kind of a union to protect student athletes. The Northwestern, I don't know if that's the one that players were arguing that because their names were being used for promotions and bringing money in that they were essentially employees.
Like if they're like the main attraction, you know, they want to be benefited. So yeah.
And you know, I mean, as much as I've said that I don't think they should be paid, I do see their perspective that if you're using my name to promote your university, you know, should I be getting something for that? So I think this issue is going to keep being discussed.
We'll have more when we return.
Ms. Stevens, I just wiped malware off our system. People have got to stop clicking unsolicited email links and downloading free software unless it's from a trusted source.
Sounds great.
We need a data backup plan in a separate location in case we get hacked.
We need to focus on making profits, not spending them.
Learn to protect yourself from ransomware. If you become a victim, contact your local FBI office.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
You guys going to my party on Friday?
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be crazy.
All right.
What's up, dude?
I'm loving your jacket.
Don't be such a fag.
If you don't mean it, why say it? Words hurt. Think before you speak.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
I do think there needs to be, when you're recruited, in a contract saying, you know, if I become a star football or basketball player and my name's being used, is there going to be some kind of compensation? Or it needs to be spelled out early on in contracts. So I do think in that sense there needs to be, if it happens, there needs to be from the beginning that laid out. So
at some point you do believe that they should get paid?
I believe that there still needs to be discussed, but if that is the case, because I think players are feeling like they're getting taken advantage of. They're recruited, given a scholarship, and then suddenly their name's being plastered all over and used, and they're feeling like, hey, I should be getting something. So I'm just saying I understand their perspective.
Right.
And it should still be discussed. I just don't know if there's any easy way to do that.
Right. Okay.
And which players get that versus others that don't. It's very tricky. It's complicated.
It's hard. Yeah. And do you have anything you want to say to that, or?
Just that most of that money is coming from basketball and football, obviously, but even then, such a small percentage of teams are actually the ones making that money. So I would say the majority of sports aren't making any money and really shouldn't be able to make an argument in order to get paid if they're not actually bringing in a positive profit to the school.
Okay. And so they have that one and done. Are you guys familiar with that term? Where you basically are a college athlete and then you have to like play for like a year in college before you could even be considered to go pro, and that's like over. Do you have any opinion about that, the one and done being over now, or does that matter?
Well, I can speak for baseball. If you go to a four-year school, you have to either be 21 years old or be a junior eligibility-wise, I believe, in order to get drafted. For basketball and football, basketball especially, I think 1 year and you're out. I don't necessarily agree with that because I feel like Duke, Kentucky basketball players, you know, they know they're going to get drafted. Just go after high school.
Yeah, right after high school.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that, Doctor?
You know, I get asked this question a lot. My specialty is really tennis, and you know, should players play collegiate tennis or just go pro right away, like the top junior prospects in the country? I feel like it's an individual case-by-case basis. I think certain sports, certainly athletes benefit from going to college and developing a little bit more there. But again, I think if you're ready when you're 18 or whatever, and you really want that pro career right then, I don't see that as
just go straight for it. So again, your story, Connor, being drafted and then turning it down. You weren't thinking about playing for this major league team and being successful. Did you consider that? Did that even play a role in your decision making?
Yeah, just to clear the air, I got drafted late in the 32nd round. Typically, it takes quite a bit of time for late draft picks to actually make it to the major leagues. They have to work their way up through the minor leagues to get there. So I figured, delaying that 1 year and having my degree in my back pocket would be better than starting a year early and still.
Could give you like more options, or would that have anything to do with like you negotiating your what you would be paid? Did it have anything to do with that, or not so much?
Somewhat, like it plays a role. You can kind of gauge how much the team values you by how much they offer you, and that played a role. But also, I really wanted to get my degree before I.
Do you feel that it should go in like a trust fund, or like so that the player doesn't squander their money or anything like that, or does that even matter? You can start, Doctor, if you want.
It's an interesting question. It's not one that I'd really thought about since athletes are not currently getting paid. So your question is, if they were, should it go into some kind of a trust fund so that they're not squandering their money? Again, I think that they certainly should get some counseling or guidance on what to do with their
or
money.
Maybe you can't touch it to a certain age or something like that.
Till they till they leave the university. I could see that could be beneficial. They certainly should be educated on how to manage that money. A lot of college students, but especially have no clue how to manage their money either.
And do you agree with that?
I do think it would be valuable to hold off on their access to it, but it would also be a pretty good life lesson if they did squander it, live and learn, teaches a lesson. So I could go either way on that one.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
I found them at work, on a desk, laying out in the open. Copied them, shared them on a website. Now I'm facing up to 3 years in jail. It's scary. Who knows where it's going? I mean, who's gonna hire me? Don't do it. It's not worth it.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Can't let him make a... Dude, you better not be illegally downloading movies again. I don't want a virus on my computer. Seriously. Yes!
Got it.
They got it. What an idiot.
When you rip off copyrighted material, someone could be ripping you off.
What the... Where's my money?
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching CSUN On Point. You can watch us on LA 36 Sunday mornings at 11:30 or listen to us at KCSN 88.5 FM at 5:30. Also on Sunday mornings. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Zavala.